you asking about what?
We are now live.
Good afternoon and welcome to the December 7th, 2022 City of Asheville Multimodal Transportation Commission meeting. My name is Dennis and I'm the chair of this group. Our meeting continued to be held virtually, but there are many ways for interested parties to participate in this gathering. The City of Asheville's engagement hub, which includes a variety of links and phone numbers, can be found on the Multimodal Transportation Commission page of the City of Asheville's website. Visiting this page is the best way to take part in our virtual meetings. Members, staff, and guests, please remember to keep your microphones muted at all times when you're not speaking so we can minimize feedback and other background noise. I'd like to now welcome our commission members. Members, when I call your name, please introduce yourself and let us know what interest you represent. Randy Warren.
Hi, I'm Randy Warren, and I'm also on the Bike Ped Task Force.
Hey, Randy. Kenny Armstrong.
Hi, Kenny Armstrong. I love all things multimodal, but I'm also on the Greenway Committee.
Hey, Kenny. Jack Engelman.
Hi, I'm Jack Eigelman, and I am on this committee.
Hey, Jack. Leanna Joyner. I don't think Leanna was able to join us today. Pat Katz.
Hi, I'm Pat Katz, and I'm at large, and my husband's a huge bicyclist, so I have that interest at heart. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Bill Loftus. I guess I'll Bill join us. And Maggie Ullman. Congratulations, Maggie.
Thank you. I have been on the Bike Ped, but I will be shifting off multimodal to the liaison, the council liaison to MMTC.
Excellent. We look forward to that. Then we have Joe Archibald.
Hi, everyone. Joe Archibald. I am the liaison from Planning and Zoning Commission to Multimodal.
Hey, Joe. Elizabeth Likas.
Hi, everybody. I'm Elizabeth Likas, and I'm the liaison from the Neighborhood Advisory Council to the MMTC.
Hey, Elizabeth. And Kim Rooney was not able to join us now. We're going to kind of work some of that out in the next meeting that Maggie will maybe talk about in a bit. Okay, moving on to our first order of business is to review and approve the agenda for today. Can I get a motion to approve? Pat, a motion and a second.
Approve.
I'll second.
Thanks, Jack. Any comments or questions on today's agenda? All right, without comment, we'll go to a vote. Randy Warren.
Aye.
Kenny Armstrong.
Aye.
Jack Eigelman.
Aye.
Leanna Joyner, not here. Pat Katz.
Aye.
Maggie Ullman.
I guess I can vote this time. I think this is my last favorite.
Yeah,
Let's vote on all the things. Just kidding.
One more time. I'm an aye as well. Motion carries. Next item is to review and approve the minutes from the October 26, 2022 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve?
This is Maggie. I make a motion.
Thank you, Maggie. And a second?
Thank you, Kenny. I second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on that those minutes? Randy?
Yeah, and so I noticed sometimes we write out the motions. I think that we're supposed to write out every motion, but we didn't write out the motion for the SMART grant proposal. So we need to sort that out, because sometimes we just reference things to the recording, but I'm pretty sure any votes have to be written out in the minutes, and the one on the SMART grant wasn't written out. So we need to either change. I don't think we can change the way we do that. I think that's the rules that we have to write it out. It wasn't written out, so we need to change that.
Okay. Jessica, do you have any insight there?
We can go back and revise that,
Okay.
and you can approve it as amended. Approve it with the suggestion for us to go back and make sure that that's in there, something like that.
You want to just table? We can do it next meeting?
Or we could do that if you'd like.
Okay.
That would be fine.
All right. Yeah. Well, let's
I
just
think, I think just in general too. I mean, right. The reason why we went to recording things is so we don't have to write everything out. But I'm pretty sure anything that we vote on has to be written out what we voted on. Isn't that correct?
I am actually not 100% sure, but that makes logical sense to me. That there be an actual motion written out.
Yeah. So as long as we know, then we can just go forward that way too.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, it sounds like a good plan going forward. Okay, next item is public comment. We do have 2 public comments today. They're both pertaining to an item further down in the agenda, so I'm going to hold those off and read those when we hit that item, which is about the city-county partnership for transit. So we'll move on to new business. The first item is a right-of-way closure proposal. Jessica.
Thank you. First, I just wanted to ask, what do you guys think about the format for the agenda where I added action, whether it's an action item or a discussion item, and if that's helpful at all with a little description?
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Cool. I will do that. Makes it look a little bit longer, but I think it's better to have that information. Okay, let me share my screen. This is a proposed right-of-way closure, and we have the applicant actually here with us, Mr. Bob Oath, but this is what I would consider to be a pretty, maybe one of the simplest ones that we've had so far, which is great for us, but unfortunately, Mr. Oath and his client had to go through the whole process, just like some of the more complicated ones. Let me see how can I share this? Okay, so this is related to the Central United Methodist Church. They are located on Church Street and between Buncombe Street and Church Street, and they have what is technically an unopened right-of-way that really acts pretty much like their driveway, or is their driveway off of Buncombe Street into their parking lot. This is approximately 150 feet long and 25 feet wide. And you can see right here, you've got Buncombe Street on the left running kind of north-south-ish. And the county's parking garage is the big white block on the left. And then you can see what is basically their driveway into the rear of into the church. So we took this to the TRC November 7th, and there was a recommendation to approve the closure and forward it to the Multimodal Transportation Commission. So our motion here for you today is to recommend that City Council approve the requested closure of an unopened right-of-way connecting to the east side of Buncombe Street between Commerce and Aston, associated with the Central United Methodist Church. Are there any questions? Randy?
So what's at the end of that? Looks like there's something at the end. So not either side of it is the parking lot, obviously, but then right up against the church, there's a little cutout, and there's something there. Is that dumpsters that need to be accessed, or delivery spots that need to be accessed, or I just wonder what that is there.
I can answer that. Can you all hear me? Yeah. Okay. That is the HVAC equipment for the church, and it's the status of that little segment back there is a little bit unclear. It shows up on some plats, but not on others. And but it's had the HVAC equipment on it for as long as I know. And as far as we've been able to tell, although this street shows up on a plat that was recorded back in 1894, it's never been opened or maintained by the city.
So I guess so there's city maintained equipment though. I'm sorry, you're a little fuzzy there on that.
It's the church's HVAC equipment.
Okay. Okay.
and it's been fenced off.
Thank you.
Elizabeth?
Yeah, I'm trying to get, I wish I could zoom out on this picture because if that is I'm a little confused. Maybe this is an obvious question. I'm just missing where the closure is. If this is the back parking lot that I'm familiar with across from the parking deck, how would they get in and out of their parking deck? Because Commerce Street is one way and already closed halfway down. I'm a little confused as to closing that part of Buncombe Street.
It's not closing Buncombe Street. It's closing this driveway right here. It's not physically closing it. It's just right now it's platted as a right-of-way, as public right-of-way. And so the church has asked to have it closed in the sense that it's going to become their property. So this is Buncombe Street.
Right.
What we're talking about is just closing this unopened right-of-way for the purposes of making it private property of the church.
But not actually closing it off so that people can't use the parking lot because there's no other
Correct.
way. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. It's kind of like, that's an important thing, I guess, that we should note, especially for newer folks, is that when we're talking about right-of-way closures, permanent right-of-way closures, 99% of the time, we're not actually talking about physically closing anything. It's just that we've got all of these very old plats from the late 1800s, early 1900s that they platted something that they said, oh, this is going to be a street or this is going to be an alley, and it never actually became that. And so when we're closing something, it's usually about making it private property because it's not useful to the city as a public right-of-way.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It's helpful.
Joe?
Yeah, of course, as always, I'm wondering, at least there's likely no development that will be happening with this. But then, of course, the other inevitable is there any monetary compensation for this? I mean, it's, previous public property that will then become private, other than, obviously, this will now be part of the private property of the church, which, given that it's a church, doesn't pay a huge amount of taxes, but yeah.
Or any. No. Short answer is no. We don't have a mechanism to charge other than for the actual process of closing.
Okay. Yeah, that's another reason why I keep bringing it up in hopes that one day it may change.
Thanks, Joe. Randy?
Yeah, and Elizabeth, just real quick on other background information. When we close this kind of stuff off too, this being a church, and church is rarely closed, although one closed on Hendersonville Road not too long ago, and did some really good stuff with this property. So it does happen sometimes too. But sometimes someone might close this and then develop this area, and it could have been an access point to city services or deliveries or things like that would take it off of the street. So that's why these things come before us, is because we want to make sure that we're seeing the bigger picture. Because sometimes the developer might be like, well, that's usable property, I can generate income off of that, and then they're going to park huge trucks in front of there to load and unload and block the street and things like that. So, or make it harder for people to walk through or cut through on a bike or whatever it is like that too. So this doesn't seem to be that case at all, because the church has been there for a really long time and we don't anticipate anything ever happening to it. But that's one of the reasons why we look at it, is because sometimes there's other things that aren't being considered transportation related to that we might see that they would see.
Okay, without any other comments?
I do want to, just for Jessica's sake, I did notice one small mistake in the written description. It doesn't affect where the property is, but I will fix that and get it over to you tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, that's just fine. And is it in this description that's wrong, or in the legal description?
It's in the written description, but it's in the meets and bounds. There's a course that's stated incorrectly, but it doesn't affect what you've shown the commission.
Okay. Okay, that's good.
All right, without comment, we could accept a motion.
I propose to accept the motion as written.
I have a motion. Can I get a second?
This is Kenny. I second.
Thank you, Kenny. Any other comment or question? Without comment, we'll go to a vote. Randy Warren.
Aye.
Kenny Armstrong.
Aye.
Jack Eigelman.
Aye.
Pat Katz.
Aye.
Maggie Allman.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, our next item is Multimodal Commission membership. We have a couple, well, we have one open slot, and then unfortunately, well, fortunately for all of us, Maggie's moving on to the bright lights of City Council, so we'll be filling her seat potentially as well. We have a couple of folks that have raised their hand interested in participating in our board. Jessica.
Sure. So, oh, go ahead. Okay, thought I heard somebody. So we've got 3 applicants for the Multimodal Commission, and we've got 1 spot technically right now, which is John Bassoni's spot, and he was also on the Transit Committee. So the intention would be for this person to also fill the role in the Transit Committee. And so you've got the attached applications that you can see, and likely what we'll do is bring forward the same applications next time, of those who don't get approved today, and maybe we'll get some other applications in the meantime to fill Maggie's spot.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll do 1 now, maybe 1 next week or next month.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Any comments? Elizabeth.
Yeah, this may be just another orientation question for me, but is the MMTC like other commissions where you have to make sure it's balanced with certain zip codes? Because I noticed that, I mean, I don't know where everybody is from on here, but 2 are from the same area of town and 1 is from one. I'm just wondering if are there things like that where there have to be enough people from South Asheville, East Asheville, as well as North and West?
No, there's nothing official that we go by. There's nothing in the official ordinance or bylaws that require that. It obviously would be a desire to have a diverse group of people, but that's not a requirement. I think it is for the neighborhood advisory committee. Yeah.
It's definitely for the neighborhood, which makes sense. But I just wondered in general on some of these commissions, because obviously there's projects that are going on, and there's a lot of people from West Asheville and a lot of people from North and Central, and that's where the projects are getting done. So I just want to kind of put in there to think about for future membership that there's some consideration of that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something that, with that information is always provided to us in the applications, and it's something I always look at and consider and try to, as best we can. But the more folks that are applying, I think the better opportunity we have to make sure everyone is got a seat at the table. Joe.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a real quick comment. Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth, for bringing that up. I know Kim, when she was on Multimodal, was always, one of the advocates for trying to get, a more diverse group of people. And I know it's come up before with, does the meeting time have effect? Now we've been in the pandemic remote thing for 2 years now. I don't know if it would be curious to know if this helps people attend meetings or not. I really don't know. I would think it would help, but is that maybe spurring people to apply more? That would be, good to know, because I do think as I look over these, I feel like there is a general segment of the Asheville population that applies, and I think we're definitely missing more like really diverse people. So, and that's not just for multimodal, but for everything. So,
and just kind of a quick footnote to that. Each month there is an email that is sent out about all the openings across all of the groups, and we're always encouraged to kind of spread that out to our networks, to talk to your neighborhood, talk to anyone you can, just to make sure that we're getting as much reach as possible, because the city is always looking. There are always, every day, open spots on all of these commissions and boards, and we're always looking for folks. Back to the I'm sorry,
I'll also just mention, just for the good of the group, you're not required to appoint any or recommend appointment of anybody. If you feel like you wanted to wait and try to get more, like, that's always an option as well. We don't have I think the minimum number we're supposed to try to have is 9, if I remember correctly. I might be getting that mixed up with another commission, but you don't have to pick anybody if you don't want to.
Well, I think we have a couple of openings coming up. We have one current and we have one pending. So if possible, I would like to see if we can get that slot filled, just so we don't fall behind. We've had some challenges in the past where we start to shrink a little bit, and just want to make sure we can keep the city business moving. Kenny, do you have a comment?
I was just looking at the applications, and Joseph submitted his in February, and one is from May and one is from August, I think. Have we had any contact with these applicants to see if they're still alive or around or available or still interested? Because I'd hate to appoint somebody and then find out that they don't live here anymore. Like, why go through the steps if we haven't done the second round of vetting?
That is a good question. That is a practice that we were doing, and I can't confirm for sure right now that we have done that for this. I didn't realize that they were that old in submitting. So,
yeah, I believe the process is you apply, and I believe you're notified that your application will be considered for 1 year. And if you don't get appointed, you're encouraged to then reapply after a year. So, maybe what we could do is make a recommendation here, get council's input and approval or feedback, and they can take a step, and then we can reach out to whoever that person might be, and then kind of take next steps from there.
Yeah, my instinct was to say, let's go for the one who applied first, but then it's like, well, maybe we should go with the one who applied the closest to the current date.
Yeah, I think those are all considerations. I tend to, when I look at the folks, I try to look for, applicable experience and, experience in our transit system and our, all of our infrastructure. In my and just experience in the industry as well. I find it really helpful that when folks have transit experience, it really helps us to focus our conversations and get more input, more really valuable feedback. So is there anyone that has any recommendation they'd like to make?
Just in my reviewing of the applications, it seems like Joseph Chesler brings a real breadth of experience in a lot of different areas that would be helpful to our commission in terms of real life experience. The other two seem like they have personal experience and not work experience, where Joseph seems like he has a significant amount of work experience that's relatable.
I agree with Randy that Joseph seems to be the best qualified of the 3 applicants, that we could vote on him today, even if he was the one back in January.
Sure. Would you like to make a motion, Pat?
I make a motion that we reach out to Joseph Chesler to be our next appointment for the Multimodal Transportation Committee.
Excellent. Can I get a second? Randy, a second?
I'll second it. But I think actually what we do is we recommend to city council, because they're the ones that make the appointment. So this is just your recommendation from our group. Because the last person to get put in our group actually wasn't recommended even by our group, which is normal in our practice. So we're trying to shift back to us looking at the applications and then making a recommendation to city council, but city council can do what they want in terms of that.
Excellent. We have a motion and a second. In there, comments or questions? All right. So we have a motion. We're going to take a vote. Randy Warren.
Aye.
Kenny Armstrong.
I as well.
Jack.
Aye.
Pat.
Aye.
Maggie.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you for that work. And we'll have another. Well, I think we'll be on the email that goes out again, asking for more folks for a Maggie's position seat that will be open next month. So next item is we have a public space management task force. Jessica.
So the Public Space Management Task Force is a task force, if you will, subcommittee of the Downtown Commission. And you guys met with the commission. We had a joint meeting probably about 6 months ago. Actually, maybe it was a year ago. It's been a while, but they were a task force that was established several years ago, but then they took a break for a while, and now they've been reinvigorated, and it's intended to be a very broad group of interests. At least that's the goal, is to not have it just be about downtown business owners and needs of a certain select group. It's supposed to be looking at and balancing the various interests and needs and wants of our public space in downtown, and our public spaces, our streets, our sidewalks, our gathering areas. And so there's obviously a multimodal component to this, and all of those public spaces, or most of those public spaces, are transportation facilities. So it's important for there to be representation from a transportation standpoint on this task force. And basically, we've got up to three seats, if you will, on this task force. And we had Maggie and John Bissoni and Bill Loftus. Bill Loftus is still, I believe, on that group. But Maggie obviously will be stepping off that group, and we lost John Bissoni. So we need to fill 2 more spots. And, it doesn't necessarily have to be people from the Multimodal Commission. It could be that we find other people that might be interested in filling this role, maybe somebody from the Greenway Committee or the Bike Ped Task Force, but somebody with a transportation interest. And, the reason why I'll just say that I think it's very important, because we had a task force meeting last week. We talked about the Patton Bike Lane project. And unfortunately, there was not very many folks that were there. And so there was, I'll say, a heavier slant towards downtown business owners and folks that are, I'll just say, really not in favor of the project. And there wasn't, in my opinion, a very broad set of perspectives being discussed, and there wasn't really like that debate, which is the whole point, in my opinion, of this group, is to have it be a broad discussion with different interests. So that's just my pitch for, let's get a couple people in that group that are going to be able to hopefully be there. One of the issues that comes up is that it doesn't have a dedicated monthly meeting or dedicated time and day. So I think that might be something that we could work towards, but it is an important group. They can make motions and recommendations, but it's not like not like a commission that's appointed by the council or anything, but it's supposed to have a broad set of interests in there.
Thanks, Jessica. When we're asking folks to kind of raise their hand, would you estimate the frequency of meetings? Just what type of commitment are we asking for folks?
And maybe Maggie can help me with this. I think it's probably been and maybe Maggie can help me with this. I think it's probably been and maybe Maggie can help me with this. I think it's probably and maybe Maggie can help me with this. I think it's probably and maybe Maggie can help me with this. I think it's probably before COVID. I'll also say that like part of why it's before hosting to be there is that part of why it's in my view, to be there is that so much of what Christy was in my view public space downtown, so much of that Christy was in my view public space downtown, so much of that Christy was in my view, but that's the real estate, if you will, so much of that Christy was in my view, but that's the real estate, if you will, walking, and we need to have bike racks, and we need to have newspaper boxes for the Mountain Express, and there's people speaking, but it's such a narrow band. The perspective that I would narrow bring to that group and was really absorbing I was bringing that perspective was really what our need was every bit really of what our permanently just for cars. So talking about sharing what streets are there times that are appropriate to close down streets, sharing that streets that sharing what Anyone interested in participating in this group? Anyone interested in participating in this group?
Hey Dennis, quick question. I presume these are Hey Dennis, quick question. I presume these are public spaces, or is there a broader footprint into public space North Ashton? There are broader footprint specifically our North Ashton.
It's focused on downtown.
Specifically our
but you don't have to be a downtown. Focused on downtown stakeholder, if you will. You don't have to own property or own business. Focused on downtown. But yeah, if you will, you don't have to own property. At the moment, it's not. But yeah, outside of the downtown, at the moment, the area. But outside of the downtown, a lot of area. Really being applicable to the area. David Road, River Art, really being applicable to the area. So it could be broadened in the future, or the things that come out of it could be broadened in the future, relate to those other areas. Things that come out of it could be broadened in the future, relate to those other areas. Things that come out of it could be.
I'd be happy to jump in. I think this is a cool topic. I'd be happy to jump in, have an opportunity to cool topic. Chime in. I'd be happy to definitely probably work together. Well, I'll just say, yeah, I'd be interested in working on it. Well,
thanks, Jack.
I'll just say, yeah.
Jack, do you want to do any catch up at any point? Happy to hop on a call and just, I don't know, brain dump any of the past. If that can be helpful for you to onboard into it, happy to chat.
Yeah. When the timing is right, let's definitely do that.
I could participate as well, so I can take one of those seats.
This is Kenny. I'd be happy to also lend a hand. It's a really important initiative. There's a lot to think about, but I think from a transportation perspective, I think we've got a lot to offer, and to report back to the commission in order to make recommendations to council. I think that could be really important as well. You know, I'm a transportation planner, and we talk a lot about the public realm and, you know, right of way, and Maggie, you're right. It's often like, well, this is for cars, but really it's the public realm, and there's a lot more to think about than just getting cars from point A to point B. So count me in too.
Excellent. There's 3 hands. Jessica, will that work for the time being?
Yeah. Actually, it's one more than we need at the moment.
Well, I can step back because I think I'm raising my hand and 2 more items, 2 more bullet points. So.
Okay. Yeah, because Bill Loftus is on the group too, and I think he had taken Michael Stratton's place. So this is, I guess, one good thing about it is that it's not as formal. Like, I think we can move people around and maybe have backups. I'm not really sure. I can talk to Dana about that. She said she did message me and says that she will send new members a very brief application to fill out and some background information. So we will get that stuff to you, sounds like Kenny and Jack. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Yes, excellent. We look forward to your reports back to us. The next item is the Transit Committee membership.
Let me go back to... So we have one reappointment for the Transit Committee, and the Transit Committee recommended that the Multimodal Commission reappoint the current member, Georgia Burtz, for her 2nd term.
So you're looking for a recommendation to approve that recommendation?
Correct. Yeah, a motion to reappoint Georgia Burtz for her 2nd term on the Transit Committee.
Randy?
Sure, I'll motion to approve Georgia Burtz for a 2nd term on the Transit Committee.
Here, here.
I got a second for Kenny. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, all right, let's run through the vote. Stand by. Randy?
Aye.
Kenny?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Maggie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion carries. Okay. Let's see, Transit Committee membership. Okay, the next item is the proposed city-county joint transit master planning effort. This is the item for which we received some public input, and I'd like to read those 2 now before we get into the item itself, if you don't mind. The first one was received on yesterday at 10:41 a.m. Hello, my name is Michael Ackerley. I am a volunteer with the AARP, and in that role, I sit on the Artsy Transit Coalition, and we would like to request several things of the city and public transit, for public transit in the next year. First one being completion of the first couple of phases of the master plan, which includes increased evening service hours until 10 p.m. on all routes, and also increased frequency in the South Asheville area. And the additional requests we have for the city is that they would jointly fund with the county in the next year a feasibility study for the coalition of transit service between the city and county, and what benefits that could provide for the community. So we thank you for your opportunity to comment. Thank you, Michael. The next message that we received is from Vicki Maith. Hello, my name is Vicki Maith. I am a resident of West Asheville and the executive director of Just Economics. Just Economics has a group, Better Buses Together. And additionally, I've been helping to convene Artsy, a coalition between individuals and organizations dedicated to advancing transit opportunities. Artsy includes groups like Just Economics, Mountain True, AARP, Children First, Communities in Schools, the Sierra Club, and city and county elected officials and community representatives. I'm here today on behalf of Artsy to encourage you to work with us to help move a study advancing city and county transit collaborations forward. While the city of Asheville passed a transit master plan in 2018, the county does not have an updated transit plan, and ARTC has been working with the county to develop such a plan. We've hoped this plan would consider the future of transit in our county, as well as our county grows, funding opportunities and the feasibility study analyzing the challenges and opportunities of merging the city's ART system with county transportation. After a lot of advocating and many discussions with both elected leaders and staff, we now believe that the city staff is has the most expertise to lead such an effort, and encourage you to make advancing such a study a priority for the Multimodal Commission. We believe that the county, must be an equal partner in paying for such a study and equally invested in the outcome. Our hope is that the study and the ongoing discussions between the city and county would cover the following. We have 3 points here. The first point is a feasibility study of the merger of the city and county transit system, potentially installing a county transit authority, identifying challenges and opportunities and cost savings. At the very least, there needs to be identification of a better connections between city and county transit. Item 2 is the potential funding opportunities or funding breakdowns. City residents are also county residents, and the growth potential of our existing transit service is limited to if the funding for our major bus system continues to be primarily come from the city's general fund. We hope there could be an exploration of a % sales tax for transit and or county funding. Item 3 is the growth potential of our transit system, given the increasing population that includes both areas within the county that could be better served, as well as improvements in frequency with the existing core service within the city. We ask that you today you please work with RC and make this study a priority recommendation for the Multimodal Commission. Thank you, Vicki Maith, Executive Director of Just Economics. So those are our 2 excellent comments. And with that, we will start the discussion. Jessica.
Okay, sorry about that. I guess I do have one thing I can share. So a while back, I put together some information about what I thought we could do in working with the county. And I put together just a bulleted list of some of the things that could potentially be studied as part of a joint planning effort. So what Vicki is referring to in some of her recommendations or her requests, I guess, they're talking about formation of a regional transit authority of some kind, and merging of our transit system. And that very well may be what is recommended, but I think what we're looking at, or what we're thinking, is let's study what we have, let's study what the county has, let's look at where we have opportunities. Let's look at the needs, not just from an operational perspective, which is kind of what our existing transit master plan focused on, but also from the facilities side and the fleet side, which we have, I'll just say, like, severely underfunded, or not funded at all, I should say, and look at the global picture, and then decide, is merging what we need, is what's the right governance structure for this kind of operation. And that would be an outcome of the study, is that recommendation. So, this is kind of a summary of what I think we would propose, but to be honest, I haven't really had conversations with the county staff or anyone at the county about the scope of a possible study, but I am planning on submitting a budget request for this coming budget year. We're in the process of putting budget requests together at the moment. And it certainly is a topic that I've talked about with our city manager's office previously, but we haven't taken the leap into, I'll say, more formal conversations or more focused conversations with the county about the potential for teaming up on a study together.
Thank you. Yeah, kind of anecdotal, if I could just kind of add, what I have experienced just going around town a couple of times, this idea has come up. And as Asheville becomes a more expensive place, city proper, we have folks that are moving out outside of the city boundaries, and we'd like to see if there's just investigate whether it's even possible to put something together where we can have a fluid system that could provide some connection and therefore maybe growth opportunity and some other housing opportunities for folks that are getting a little pushed a little bit further out to use the system. And right now it's just looking for what would that look like? Is it possible? What's the needs? All those kinds of things. So I think that's what I've been hearing. And then Randy and I were both in communication with Kim Rooney about some ideas. So she's kind of looped us into this as well. Randy, do you have something to add?
Yeah, it seems at this point, there's a lot of, like to talk about this and some thoughts about it and stuff too, but the city seems to be a little bit reluctant to put forth any staff time without any money behind the project. And so I think two things we can do. One is to encourage city council to direct staff to start putting some some effort that doesn't cost a lot of money, to forward this. And then the second thing is to support a budget request for a feasibility study, because then that goes through and it'll be approved, right, the next July, and it'll be for fiscal year 23-24, right, Jessica? Not for the next one there. So it's a ways away, but we don't need to waste this time between now and then. We can start having conversations between the cities. Like Jessica said, she talked to the city about it, but hasn't really any discussions with the county about it. And my understanding is that that's somewhat driven above Jessica. They're not really giving her directive to speak to the county in that project because we don't have funding for it in place yet. But there's a lot of work that can be done without additional funding at this point in time between now and when the feasibility study might be funded almost a year from now. And so I think if we could recommend those two things, one, the city council direct staff to start working on this project in ways that aren't going to cost, a large budgetary commitment at this point in time, but then also to approve a budgetary request for a feasibility study in the next fiscal year.
Excellent, Randy. Thank you. Pat?
Jessica, are there any existing coordination between Buncombe County and City of Asheville and the transportation area? Do you all see each other face to face in any regular meetings?
No, not really, which is not the best answer. I mean, North Carolina is interesting to me because counties don't actually own or operate or maintain roads in the state. It's just the state of North Carolina or a city. So the county, I think, has been, and probably all counties are in this state, a lot more hands-off on transportation related topics in general. So it's not, I think there's a lot of coordination that could be improved, not just for transit, but for everything like sidewalks and such. Right now the county doesn't even have a mechanism to fund or maintain sidewalks, and they don't even require sidewalks in the county for projects that are built, which is becoming an even bigger issue in my opinion. So, but as far as transit goes, we do have a little bit more coordination there because the city contracts with the county to run the paratransit system. So from a paratransit standpoint, we coordinate with them. And we also coordinate with them because they run a 3 routes called the Trailblazer that connect to the ends of 3 of our routes and go farther out. So there's an Inca Trailblazer, there's a one that goes north up to Weaverville, and then there's one that goes to Black Mountain. So we coordinate with them on that, but that's the extent of our coordination.
Thanks, Jessica. Randy, please.
I'm sorry. So I think we still want to get to the point where we think about just Buncombe County too, regionally, really to regional. I mean, to run up to Marshall or to run to Mars Hill, or there's some easy way connection centers that it would probably have some decent fun or decent ridership because they have natural connection centers, where there's universities, in Mars Hill or, heck, even Brevard, there's Hendersonville. There's, but of course those are Brevard, is that Henderson County or is that Pennsylvania over there? But anyway, there's other counties that be involved too, at least Madison County and things like that too. So maybe the Land of Sky Regional. So we'd start with Buncombe County, obviously, but then we might make sure that we didn't structure it only to be Buncombe County in the future, but perhaps to be region-wide.
Meg, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know that you've been involved in this. Is there anything that we're missing that's kind of been floating around? Any details?
Yeah. What would I say? I think that there had been a joint city-county meeting on this with 2 elected officials from the county and 2 from the city, and the city manager and the county manager over a year ago. So that level of leadership has been aware and I know Kim has been really involved with the Art C Coalition and the group of folks who wrote this letter. So lots of different leaders have been part of this, but when I'm talking to different folks, no one kind of clarity on who was going to do what next or who was going to own what next. It wasn't there, which sometimes is just a sign of folks didn't end up at the same page, you know? And so I think that Jessica, I hear where you're thinking this is, and I think that makes sense of kind of what some of those steps are. And I do think some of what you're saying, Randy, is like amongst a very full plate for the transportation department and all city staff. If this really zeroes in as a key priority, then it will have fuel behind it. You know, I feel like that's some of the limbo. I wish we were in the same room, Jessica, because I'm kind of looking at you of like, there's just so much to do, right? And like, until there's really clear direction that there is a lot of unified support for this, you still have to run a transit system and do all this other stuff that were you to have really crystal clear support, then it would change the way it's looked at on your work plate. Is that fair?
I don't know that there's any hesitancy coming from, well, there's a lot of just disconnected communication. I haven't really been spoken to directly about this topic in probably 8 months, maybe longer. I feel, and I certainly, and my team certainly has a over full plate right now. This will be a very major effort. But at the same time, I look at it and I think we have to, if we want our transit system not just to grow, but to exist and not crumble, then we have to find more revenue sources. So whether that's, and I don't think that the city can be the one who continues to bear the brunt of that need. And I'm not saying that it's Buncombe County's responsibility. I'm just saying, like, I'm trying to get from A to B, which is, and B being more funding resources for transit. And I think that the best path forward to get to that place is with the county, and ultimately, you know, not, I hate to say it out loud, but I think we need to really explore the quarter-cent sales tax that is a legislative option for us, and could mean a world of difference for our transit system and our community. And so that's where I'm trying to head, and I think we all just need a push to get there.
2 other things to add on the quarter-cent sales tax. In January, council will approve what's called our legislative agenda, which is basically our priorities from the community for things that happen in Raleigh. And so we give that to our state senators, we give that to our state legislators, we give that to our lobbyists, and they are like, okay, this is Asheville's list. And so council is like talking through that now. There's already a draft. One of the maybe 6 items on this legislative agenda is to pursue enabling legislation for the city of Asheville to pursue a quarter-cent sales tax for transit, we currently are allowed to do this at the county level, but not at the city level. So that is something that is being discussed and is a current priority in the legislative agenda. I would support it staying on there. I don't know if it's controversial. My guess is if it's controversial, it wouldn't have gotten on the draft. I don't really know. But so that type of conversation from the council leadership has been happening. The other thing I wanted to share is, you know how we have all these committees. We are on the commissions. Council also has council committees where groups of 3 council members are on a topic and they meet monthly. And up until now, there has never been one of these council committees that addresses stuff that has to do, quote unquote, with the environment. So anything related to the environment or transportation kind of goes to other committees for other reasons, but it's not squarely in the focus. So now we're going to have an environment and safety committee, which pending everybody supports the mayor's recommendation next week, I'll be the chair of. And so we're going to have a big opportunity for council to really zoom in on things that are touching, quote unquote, the environment bucket, but a bunch of transportation stuff is in that description as well. So I fully hope that we're going to see council wrestling at the council's leadership level with transportation, environment, energy stuff more than we might have seen in the past. So I find that as a hopeful opportunity for council to provide even more oomph for things that we all care about. And this is a key priority of mine. When I received the letter today that Vicki Meath shared with our committee, I immediately responded to staff saying I would like to see this on one of the environment committee agendas. I don't even know how those agendas are set yet, but I let folks know this is important. So thanks for asking, Dennis. There's a bunch of fragmented parts that I'm holding in my head that I wanted to share.
Excellent. Thank you. I do see a hand raised from Elizabeth Pendleton. Elizabeth?
Oh, that's me. I'm on my wife's commute.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry. I got bumped off and logged back. I don't know what I did. So
okay.
This is Jack.
No problem. Yes, Jack.
Spouse of Elizabeth. I just had a question about if there's any context regarding how important, and I'm sure it is an important issue among members of the public, but I wanted some context of, if anyone had any context as to how meaningful an issue this is among, people of the city and the county. Like I hear, it sounds like it's an important initiative here at the government level. What is is how important is it? How much pressure is there from the public to move forward on something like this?
Yeah.
Not sure.
Okay. I think, honestly, I see that question as part of this study to figure out what type of demand there is, what would the framework look like, and with that, some type of projections of use, and is it viable, even if it's, if there's this additional funding source, is it viable to have a system that's going to both provide convenient and reliable services, and also be able to stand on its own legs at some point too. So I'm not sure if there's anything that exists now, but I think that would certainly be something that I would want to see as part of whatever was put together going forward.
And I'll also say that the group ArtC that has been working for well over, actually, I don't even know how long ArtC has been convening, but that group represents a grassroots campaign called Better Buses Together, which is a coalition of bus riders that's been convening and advocating together for a long time. It also includes AARP, Children First, Mountain True, Sierra Club. So that, although that is not like the public at large, it is a group of advocacy folks who made up of, by, and for transit folks. So I think that that means a lot to me, right? To me, when folks who spend their time on the bus and spend their time concerned about the benefits and the best interests of the bus have really come with this type of proposal is really meaningful, I think. And, if we extrapolate this out to a 1/4 sales tax, that's a big old conversation that really needs big public conversation and probably feasibility surveying of how popular those type of things are out in the public as well. So I think you're hitting on a pretty important part, that we can be visionary about what growth is going to demand of us from transportation, but we need to make sure that the community is in this conversation at large, as well as the thoughtful advocates who have been bringing this to the city.
Yeah, I agree. Kenny?
Yeah, I want to second that. It's really refreshing to have a grassroots advocacy group coming to the table and saying this is what we'd like to see. And I think it's part of our job is to listen to those and move those recommendations up the chain. I know that, you know, Haywood County has a tiny little fixed route system. I know Henderson County has a fixed route system it has its own struggles. You know, they often struggle to get funding from the municipalities to help support that. And they're doing a study right now in Henderson County to look into best approaches moving forward. So there's not like a one size fits all model that works here. And, you know, a regional transit authority could be something that we explore. I know that the MPO kind of recommended that as something to look into. So I fully support this looking into it, whatever that means. I don't know. You know, sometimes it's like, oh, let's not pay for another study to tell us what we already know. But I think when it comes to transit, I don't think we know what the answer is. So I think a study would be really helpful. If the city needs another push to advance that, I think I would support it.
Excellent.
I have a question to Jessica, and maybe Maggie. Does it make any sense to think more of, instead of paying for a study, is maybe paying for another position in transportation? That could be the person who studies that, and it would also, because it sounds like with your plate so full already, I appreciate use of the money.
I appreciate that. I think I haven't thought about it from that perspective. My sense is that there's probably going to be more positive action if it's not an ongoing expense, although we could consider a temporary position potentially. I'll leave that on the table as a possibility. I don't believe that I shouldn't say, we've got some new people in our transit division. I don't think I'm an expert on transit by any means. And I don't think that, I don't know that we have the specialized skills to look at things like van pool and that kind of thing. So we would definitely need some form of outside help.
The reason why I mentioned that is that I got a position back in the 90s to help, that created a position to help coordinate new money that was federal money. And they put in there that they needed to have a staff person at the local level to facilitate that kind of coordination. And because it was new money and when it was new kinds of projects, they had all kinds of alternative transportation potential, but they didn't have anybody at staff level to help usher, through all the paperwork that goes with the federal funding. And that's sort of what I'm thinking, is that if there is money, maybe there's a position in a grant or something that would provide that in-house support for you and be able to do the logistics of working at a staff level if you work in a government, it's a totally different situation than being a consultant outside of it, because you don't have that built-in network at the staff level.
That's true. Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. I really like that idea as well. And I think the sense I'm getting is that there is at least an understanding that some further investigations should occur. So if there isn't any other comment, maybe Randy, would you be willing to go back to your motion that you were talking about earlier and make that motion?
Sure. Yeah, I motion that the city devote two things: devote resources towards staff resources without maybe additional funding at this point in time towards initiating conversations with let's say Buncombe County and the Metropolitan, the MPO, about establishing or investigating a regional plan or a regional transit authority. And then secondly, that they support funding for a feasibility study towards that end. Does that make sense, Jessica? I don't want to overburden in terms of saying staff needs to devote the time, but I just want to make sure that staff is motivated by the higher ups to feel free to work on that as you know, on your workload already going on there too. So I don't want right now again. So that's the end of the motion. But my feeling was that without a push from the city council or from upper level management of the city, this isn't going in place right now, and we shouldn't have to wait a year for it to happen. So if that wording is not appropriate, then we can adjust it. But that's the intent behind the motion.
I think if I could make a suggestion just to simplify it a little bit, I think what the conversations have been about, the city and county undertaking a joint transit planning study and just leaving it at city county for now. And secondly, requesting a budget for the fiscal year, the 24 fiscal year to do the study. That's kind of the two things I see.
Sure. So I think what we want, I think our goal is the same. So we want to move this forward in the way that everything we can do to help with that is possible. So the motion will be for city and county to work towards a county transportation or city county cooperative county transportation, city county transportation, and to have a budget for that project in the next fiscal year.
Excellent. Pat?
I'm just going to maybe simplify that from what Jessica had in the agenda, that we recommend that that this committee recommends the city seek discussion with Buncombe County to fund a transit master plan. What we're doing is we're recommending to council that this become an important issue for them and for them to seek leadership in the county. We can't provide the leadership, but we can provide the recommendation that this committee thinks that's an important agenda item for the council. What do you think, Maggie?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to word it. Ultimately, you know, I think, like this is a top priority. The transit committee has said this is a top priority. We agree it's a top priority, and then make it happen. And that could be through money or recommendations. So I don't want to wordsmith in there, but I'm definitely where you're at, Pat, of bump this up in priority, put the effort working with the county. And yeah, so that's really not eloquent, but I'm just kind of throwing glitter on that.
It's surprisingly challenging, it turns out. Okay, I think there's a motion of substitution potentially. Randy, does that jive? Maybe you want to just one more time, we'll say it, then we can get a second.
Sure. So I think actually in the agenda, we can maybe just use this here. So we endorse the concept of a joint planning effort with Buncombe County to develop a transit master plan.
Beautiful. And can I get a second?
I can second that.
Thank you, Pat. A second. Any other comments or questions? All right. Without further comment, we will have a vote. Randy?
Aye.
Kenny?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Maggie?
Joyfully and excitedly, aye.
I'm an aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Good conversation. Next item is the Greenway Committee, excuse me, and Bike Ped Task Force. Jessica?
Thank you. Lucy, do you want to take this, or do you want me to do it?
I
know
don't
we have
care. Go ahead, Jessica.
Okay, I need to find the presentation that you put together. So this is just a discussion item. We're not asking you guys to make any decisions or motions at this meeting unless you're really compelled to. But what we wanted to talk about is the concept of combining what is the Greenway Committee and the Bike Head Task Force. And we put together just really some quick ideas and thoughts about why we think this might be a good idea. So for those of you that are newer, we've operated as having the Multimodal Commission, which is appointed by the council, and then we have a Transit Committee, a Greenway Committee, and a Bike Ped Task Force. And the task force has got a different name and is not technically a committee. I think for lots of reasons, they're not official. They don't have meetings that are publicly noticed, and they don't have appointments. Not all of the seats are appointed by the Multimodal Commission, so it's been kind of operating off to the side a little bit. With Barb's passing, she was primarily dedicated to the Bike Ped Task Force, and with Dan Bechtold moving on, we took that opportunity at that time. It's been about a year to envision how our transportation planning division in general looked. And so the way that we're structured right now is that we don't have necessarily a dedicated bike ped coordinator. Lucy has been previously was the Greenway coordinator. Now she's the transportation planning division manager. What we've decided to do is try not to have silos of certain positions dedicated to only bike planning or only Greenway planning. We want our transportation planning staff to have time to spend on each of these things, but also since our network is supposed to be connected, it doesn't really make sense to have planners. In my opinion, it doesn't really make sense anymore to have planners that are only looking at one thing. Instead, they need to be looking at the big picture. And I think just for their own careers and job satisfaction, having experiences working on different types of projects is a good thing. So anyways, we're trying to break down silos. The Greenway Committee and the Bike Ped Task Force have similar goals and concerns. A greenway is really just a type of infrastructure. It serves bicyclists and pedestrians. So it's just one type of facility. So what we're hoping is to combine these groups. It would help also with some of the member recruitment and retention issues that we had, and it would certainly help city staff be able to support all of these different interests. So yeah, this is kind of a summary of what we looked like previously in our planning division. Lucy was the Greenway person, Barb was the bike ped person, and Dan was the one who was looking at like larger roadway projects with DOT. And what we're trying to do now is a more comprehensive approach that's not siloed, and that we're all working on making sure that all of these things interconnect. So if we combined the two, and there's nothing that we'd have to do officially, like we wouldn't have to go to council and get approval for this. It's really kind of up to us and up to you guys what you think. We don't really have a name for it, but this Active Transportation Committee was one idea that we came up with, but it certainly could be anything really. So there wouldn't be an absorption of either. It's really just combining and rebranding into a new committee it doesn't impact the transit committee. They would still kind of be separate. And then, of course, there's plenty of work that we can all do together, and since we're all working towards the same goals. And that's all I've got for presentation. I'm sure you guys have lots of questions, and again, you don't have to make any decisions today.
Thanks, Jessica. I guess my question is, I feel like, or my thought on this is that I feel like this makes sense. I kind of see this confluence of use within our town, that these two groups are kind of marrying. I know that when I'm on a greenway, I see all varieties of bike ped activity, motorized and otherwise, and I think the goal then would be that in this new structure, it's up to that group to make sure that we're those two purposes or groups are both being heard. There's so many things I think that come out. I look forward to the reports that we get from these committees each month, because I feel like that information really kind of helps us to understand everything that's going on and kind of set what we want to talk about. So I think just as long as I feel like that can still happen, I'm all for any type of format that seems to be more efficient and more productive for the group.
So I sorry, raise my hand, but so we talked about a bunch at the two bike ped task force meetings a lot at the last one, and then at the Greenway committee meeting last one too. It was interesting because I've only been here for not quite 8 years yet, and I've been on the bike ped for 7 of those. And apparently, bike ped was originally underneath Land of Sky, and not this city. Before Land of Sky was an NPO, or if it was an NPO, it was just basically this city that wasn't really a regional planning organization. So, and then when they became regional outside of Asheville, then that's when bike ped kind of moved under multimodal. So multimodal's only been around since 2013, something like that. So and the bike ped is like 30 years old. It's been around for a long time, and so it's interesting because all the other committees were formed after commissions because they're a subgroup of the commission, where bike ped was kind of absorbed or started reporting to multimodal because Land of Sky changed its organizational structure. And another thing about the bike ped is that it's always been the kind of thing that's real fluid, which is a blessing and a curse, so that people can come and go. The last meeting, for example, 2 people came that I had not met before. So that means they haven't been to a meeting, I think, in the last 7 years, but had been before that. They were very strong pedestrian advocates. One was visually impaired, and so it was super important to have that as a consideration too. And something that can happen no matter what too. But the point is that they felt free to drop into this meeting and be very active members of it and not have to be recognized as just in the public comment section. So a lot of that's how things are run, but if something dropped into like this commission meeting, they wouldn't be able to sit around the table and be that, they'd have an opportunity to speak on a public comment section. So I'm not sure exactly how the committees are run because bike ped isn't a committee, but that's always a concern that people have. And also too, some people on the bike ped are from the county. They aren't from the city, but they still ride in the city and they've got experience that the city can use and that kind of stuff too. And they would be eligible to be a member of any kind of committee for the city too. So it's just those kind of concerns. So if we do this, and I totally understand. And so first of all, I'm very not possessive of, but I'm very much passionate about bicycling specifically, but also walking and in greenways and stuff too. I was always confusing when I first moved here calling greenways. We call greenways anything. We call them multi-use trails in other parts of the country, but so it's just different because, for example, on Wheaton Creek Road, NCDOT is going to put in something there, facility, and it looks like right now, at least the plan is, who knows, would be a multi-use trail. Well, I think we should have a bike lane in addition, or there too. And those are two separate things in some ways. Like the bike facility on the trail, on the roadway would be a bike ped task force issue, where now the multi-use trail will be a greenway issue. So that makes sense that we combine those things because it's really a transportation network, and we want to move bikes both for recreation and for transportation. So having them together, that really makes a lot of sense. So there's lots of things that would work together well. and I totally understand the staff demands, and right now Anna's the liaison to bike ped, and I know that's putting more pressure on her and staff and stuff like that too. And so I get that. And so I'm not against the idea. I guess I'm just really making sure that, well, if we preserve the best of both these groups, if we would merge them together, that we do it in a carefully structured way that would allow for more public involvement perhaps than a traditional committee would have, where you have to be appointed to sit at the board and to the table and stuff too. I mean, like the meeting I went to, they invited me because, it's a difference too. They sit at the table, and if you're not sitting at the table, you're behind and you're not necessarily part of the discussion as actively. And so I appreciate that, they invited me to sit at the table, which was nice, but we also had other, another person too was there too, but the other people were sitting behind. And then it's like, if you want to involve the conversation, you kind of have to bring them in. They aren't just all part of that. So we have to be careful, I think, in terms of making sure that we are more accessible than a traditional committee might be. And also too, and Lucy, I told this Lucy directly, I mean, she's the Greenways ultra advocate and does such a great job with that. And I know her role is changing and will be more involved in other aspects of it and stuff too, but that's a passion she has, just like I've, my passion too. And so I so appreciate you in the presentation, Jessica, that you looked and you said, hey, we're not absorbing one or the other, and it's becoming like a merging, because that will be important too. How we present this to the committees are important, not just to the committees, but to the community as well too, because this is a public avenue. And when someone like, I won't do a public comment, I'm sorry. Some members of Congress, or the council, don't feel that bicycles, for example, are a transportation device. They're a recreation device. And they've strongly expressed in public forums that we shouldn't put a priority on facilities for bicycles because they're not transportation. And so I think that having this, and people said too, they feel like Asheville on Bikes drives all bike policy, for example, of the city. And it's not the case at all. Bike ped drives policy, multimodal drives policy, and we need to make sure we keep those as a strong public input sources so that we can present to council that this isn't coming from a special interest group, it's coming from a structural part of the city government. So again, I so appreciate you. This is a process that we're taking step by step, which is great, getting a lot of discussion about it and input, because I think that's how we're going to get the best buy-in. And so if we do combine these, so if we can be as inclusive in terms of people, but also ideologically and structurally, organizational structurally, that's the best way to go forward with it, because then we can make a stronger force rather than making a diminished force. I don't know if that made sense to anybody, but
Thanks,
hopefully something to make it.
No, I'm with you on that, and I think for me, your opinion really matters, because I think you are, as you said, very passionate about this, and I just want to make sure we don't lose anything. One of the things that makes sense for me on this is that I'm starting to see, I feel like we're going to have not conflicts, but rubs with our greenway structure as that grows, and we have these different modes using the network. We might see some opportunity to clarify how all of these different modes interact. And so in that way, I feel like I really like the idea of those folks coming together, because I think you in particular have a lot of experience in that area that I can drive a lot of what happens, in that structure, and just how we approach it and make sure that everyone can feel comfortable and safe and productive on those networks. Jessica?
Well, I was just going to say to kind of speak to Randy's concern, or I don't know if fear is the right word, that bike issues might get less attention. I can absolutely assure you that that is not the case. I mean, we're actively getting torn apart for lots of planned proposed bike lanes at the moment. I think we're trying to go more aggressively, if you will, on that kind of infrastructure. Greenways seem to be something that more people support and can get behind, and bike lanes, as you know, are definitely more controversial and more difficult, but we are committed to trying to forward those types of projects. And I think in some ways, having the bike ped task force not be official, I don't want to say it was a hindrance to that, to promoting that, but maybe we can even be stronger in this kind of configuration is what my hope would be. Oh, and then the other thing I was going to mention is like, we've got bikes and peds, but we're also got all these random e-devices, I'm going to call them, that are just popping out of everywhere. I see all kinds of crazy stuff online right now with things that you can strap to your feet and move on. So I think that's going to be part of what we all are going to be looking at in the future too. And I think we have some immediate needs for that as well, with e-scooters and e-bikes and greenway use and who gets to use what facility. So that's going to be a topic as well.
I agree. Jack?
Yeah, my 2 cents is that I think it makes a lot of sense to pull them together. It's so many of the issues that greenways face are at the edges, where the greenway merges or meets roads and sidewalks. And I think it sends a strong message to the public, maybe putting these under one umbrella. I think it maybe clarifies that they have similar goals, so I think it's I definitely think it's a smart move. And maybe I do share the concern that some issues might get, does it become more, bike focused, or does it become more greenway focused? So I think thoughtful leadership with a thoughtful agenda will help that. I don't think that's something that's insurmountable.
Thanks, Jack. Pat?
To continue on that theme, I see the bicycle transportation connecting to greenways is being a network, and that they would be reinforcing each other and strengthening each other because they are using the same pathways. And like Jack says, I'm seeing more e-bikes. I'm seeing parents with their kids on their bicycles for transportation, connecting to schools and bikes, schools, parks, and libraries kind of thing. I definitely see the bicycles being a network that's just not limited to where the cars go. That the greenways, if they make that connection, it'll be a stronger system.
Thanks, Pat. Hey, Maggie.
I guess as a point of process, it sounds like, this is me just making sure I'm getting it clear, that Randy, at Bike Ped, which I am technically a member of and have the worst attendance, y'all have talked about this. This has come through Bike Ped, and then the question, has this gone to the Greenways Committee? Like, I would love it. I mean, this is my last voting meeting, but like, if it came to multimodal as a recommendation from Bike Ped and a recommendation from Greenways, like they're all thumbs up on this. That's a question I guess I have.
I can speak to that. Sorry, Randy. The Greenway Committee brought it up a couple months ago, and the last meeting we had in November, we invited the Bike Ped Task Force to come and talked about the possible merge and expressed the pros and cons of it. Then I think that both left with the idea that it would be a good idea. There's certainly still some concerns, but I think this is a great opportunity, especially since COVID in particular. The Bike Ped Task Force has lost some steam. Certainly losing Barb and Janet Barlow was a big hit, and other big players like Terry March luckily are safe and sound, but are very happy doing her retirement honeymoon and isn't around very much and stuff like that. So some of the steam that was behind Bike Ped Task Force has been lost, and the same with the Greenway Committee. We've had members who've rolled off because their terms have ended, and we're low on numbers. So this is a good time for the two committees to become one. And I think that we're at a point where we can really define what we want our tone to be, what we want the the way that we engage with the public to get feedback, like both committees really used to do. The task force and the Greenway Committee had a lot more public visitors during our meetings before COVID. So I think this is a good time to really be considering this.
Thanks, Lucy.
A follow-up question, and I don't know the proper name for this effort, but my understanding, well, there is a big effort to review boards and commissions right now, and there's a separate working group. This seems like it is covering similar ground and like trying to address similar challenges. And so my sense is that has this conversation gone through that group or not? Because I could imagine if this decision were made today by this group and that other group who's being really thoughtful and put out a survey and putting time into it, it would feel like there's some duplication and disconnection. And so I feel like that we wouldn't want to have this good thinking that I agree with all the sentiment that I'm hearing a lot of consensus on here is out of sync with that other body of work.
So a couple things. We did initiate the concept or the idea to assistant city manager and the clerk's office. And so, but we said that we wanted to have conversations with you guys first about it. I think internally everybody thinks that it has the idea or the concept is in alignment with the overall discussion that's occurring. And technically, it wouldn't have to go through a formal process because the multimodal has the authority to kind of decide how it wants to have its subcommittees. But we would make sure that it's not in conflict with any of that effort that's happening kind of separately from us right now. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think it does, and I think I just want to put a word of warning out that there's just so much energy around what was a proposal from the city a while ago to reduce and get rid of committees, and there's a lot of people who feel really concerned about transparency and access and community leadership.
Right.
And this makes an autonomous decision on that same theme outside of the body of people who've been volunteering a lot of time. It just reminds me of advice the first day that I worked for the city was like, make sure every decision you always make, you'd be proud of it being a headline on the Citizen Times. And I can imagine a headline that doesn't get the essence of our intention, but makes it look like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like I think that's
like we're trying to stifle
happening.
We don't want it to look like we're trying to stifle or get rid of anybody or
usurping their thoughtful planning because they're doing a lot of work now and they could see this type of consolidation strategy as kind of under their purview.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked to the city manager. Y'all are vetting those. I just want to lift up again, just make sure that we follow a really good process to honor everybody who's putting in really thoughtful time to make sure we engage our neighbors really well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Please. Randy?
So I think that the two biggest things we can do at this point in time, so I mean, you know, in my mind, I can say I kind of see us heading down this path, which it seems like makes a lot of sense. But two biggest things we can do is one, don't rush it, which we aren't doing, which is great, because if we can say to people that this was on the agenda for Bike Ped for 3 months in a row, and we discussed it, we had a lengthy discussion about it last time, and have one or two more discussions about it too, so that people that do drop in and drop out can't say like, well, I didn't know that, or they could say at least like, well, it's my fault for not checking in for the last 3 months or whatever. That's one point of it. And then the second point is the biggest disadvantage of this is that people who don't want to be formally part of the committee having, or aren't eligible to be a part of the committee to have a voice in the process. So I'd hate to have people who live in the county, for example, but who come to the task force right now, then they're welcome because it's not being an official structure of the city, they can do that. to feel like they don't have a place then to voice their concerns. So we just need to structure it in such a way that we make sure that they feel like this is still a vehicle for them, or if this isn't, that we say you really should then be a part of such and such group. And again, when this bike ped task force was formed, it was long before multimodal and all those types of things, and it wasn't. So it has a history that extends beyond the current structure. Excuse me, which is fine, but I just don't want to alienate people. Again, like those last two people that came to this last meeting had been there for a long time, and they felt like they were still welcome and they were contributed, and we want to make sure that we still offer an opportunity for those people to do that. So those are the two biggest things I think that would alleviate most of the concerns of any hesitancy. Was one, that we're rushing it, that we give plenty of time for people to have an opportunity to discuss it, and then the second one is that there's an avenue for input from people that maybe wouldn't be on the committee or wouldn't be eligible to be on the committee.
Yeah, maybe I can just add one more thing, or I could see where it seems like the two committees are okay with it. There's been a lot of conversation, and maybe it does make sense to go back and ask for a recommendation from them. That I like that idea. But to Maggie's point, I am a little bit, I wonder, I don't know. It just feels like the timing, I don't know what the timing of that I know that other group, it's quite a bit of, a hot potato, and, we don't need to get into any of that, but I think maybe it does, are we borrowing trouble here, I guess, does it feel like that at all? Or does it just make sense to kind of going forward?
Well, I can tell you that I have always, since I got here, felt a little uncomfortable with the fact that we were dedicating staff time to a group that didn't want to be official. It's always felt a little odd and awkward to me as a government person. Maybe that's just me being a government person. I don't think that there's nothing that is keeping the bike ped task force from continuing to be their group. Like, this is a really bad analogy, so don't take it disrespectfully, but it's like a book club, kind of. Like, they can still do their thing and they can come to multimodal with things that they want, but it's, the unofficialness of it has always been a little bit troublesome to me from a public input standpoint, a public notification standpoint. It's just, so I don't know that we, if we decide not to do this, I'm not sure that we can dedicate a staff person to it anymore. We've just got a lot of stuff on our plates, and I want to make sure that we're doing things legally correctly. And so I think that this would be a move in that direction as well, from a public notice standpoint, public input, making sure that we're being on the up and up with the legal stuff behind it.
Randy?
Yeah, just real quick, to Maggie's point, I think it was great. The headline was today's paper that said, that the consolidation of the commissions or getting rid of the commissions is kind of off the table and moving forward. So I think actually a little bit of a break from that announcement helps us a little bit with this process, because that was super contentious. And so I don't think this needs to be framed in that way at all. This could easily be framed as something totally separate in terms of like being more effective and just not trying to eliminate a group, but just trying to make a group stronger. But having a little bit of separation from that might be good, because I know that, that obviously created quite a stir. But I don't think it has to be connected necessarily. It's not. It doesn't have to be perceived as being connected.
That you're using past tense, and I have 4 emails in my inbox just from this week talking about the current process and work group that's evaluating the boards and commissions. So there are very active neighbors who see this decision making and thinking as a current present tense. So I'm not trying to mess with it, but I just want to.
How about we just? All I wanted was a discussion today, and I think we've got that, and we've got a good sense of their support, but we want to make sure that it is not in contrast or against what might be occurring in this other group, and so we can go back and have some more conversations with them and see get some more information there, and we can come back at the next meeting and maybe provide some additional background, or if we've missed something. Like I said, I never expected us to make a decision today. Wanted to have the conversation.
Excellent. I think we did that for sure.
No, it's good. It's good stuff.
Yes. Okay. Moving on. We got a couple of minutes left here. So we can bang through some. Is there anything from unfinished business that we'd like to address? Okay.
Hold on, I'm sorry.
I'll wait for your hand to go up. Randy.
I'm sorry. This is unfinished business, but it's in the speed forcing and technology. It's a separate. It's in the future business, future gen items. But it's unfinished business. We brought this up before. There's an article linked to California having issues with their. So I did a little research on that today. That law never went past the California legislature, so they never implemented that at all. But in the research, and again, I mean, it dealt with this a lot of times. There was study after study after study after study after study that shows that automated traffic enforcement devices reduce crashes, reduce personal injuries. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say there's no good reason. I want to say there's no good reason not to have them. And I know the state of North Carolina makes it really hard for us to have them. But the issues raised in that article, I don't think supports our cause. I guess maybe they're just put in there to help raise concerns. Seems to me like there's more specific legislation concerns because of us being in North Carolina. And as Jessica said, I have county roads. It's such a weird thing for me too. But yeah, so maybe we should put that. So I mean, I know we talked about having this be something that the city has on its agenda for the state legislation, and I know it's an uphill battle for all this kind of stuff too. But again, it's proven over and over and over again the way to make things safer. And the state says they have a Vision Zero policy, and yet they refuse to do things to implement that policy. So anyway, I'm just making that comment about unfinished business because that's an unfinished business, and we'll talk more about later. But I'm just drawing attention to it. So.
Heard. All right. I'll go into the committee updates. I don't think right now we just have Bill on transit, and he's not with us today, so we'll put that off. The attached reports, as always, are prepared and in our agenda. Greenway Committee. Kenny?
Yeah, Kenny here. Lucy left, so I'll fill in. We didn't have a meeting in December because we went to the Carolina Thread Trail Forum in Mooresville, which was a celebration of all things Greenway. North Carolina at the state level has designated 2023 as Year of the Trail. So look for a lot of state-sponsored activities and promotion and hopefully funding for some new trails and a celebration of greenways and hiking trails and connecting the whole state this coming year. That was a big piece of the forum. But as somebody on the Greenway Committee, our last meeting in November, we did talk about the merging, and it seemed like from the Bike Ped Task Force, there was a lot of emotion involved with kind of dissolving their group. So while we kind of agreed that sure it made sense from a staffing level and all that, we did table that decision to one way or another until our next meeting, which would be in January. So if Multimodal is looking for a decision from the Greenway Committee, that'll come in January, where we decide as a group one way or another. Personally, I feel like it makes sense to kind of rebrand the Greenway Committee and Active Transportation Committee. I don't really support dissolving the Bike Ped Task Force. It seems like a really good advocacy group and more of a casual venue, but I do understand Jessica's point about staffing that. So maybe Bike Ped Task Force continues to be a thing, but less of an official task force of any kind of city commission where There's no staffing involved. It's just a group that gets together to talk about all things bike ped. But as a Greenway committee member, I do kind of support the rebranding of that committee. Anyway, look for that decision in January.
Excellent. Thanks, Kenny. Bike ped, Randy.
Yeah, so again, we had a robust discussion about also the combining of the committees, or dissolving both really, and then forming a new committee. We also had a preliminary bike ped count report too, and we'll have a final one submitted with our annual report that we're working on at our December meeting, which we always have at the French Squad Chocolate Lounge. So if anyone wants to join us on the 15th at 5:30 at the French Squad Chocolate Lounge, that's when we do our annual report in honor of Barb, because she loved doing the reports at there. And so just preliminarily, briefly, that the counts are up. More pedestrians, more bikes, especially more bikes in areas. This shows that people are continuing to use active transportation more here, and we should devote more energy and time to it. So it's not super scientific, but it's a decently traffic, over a number of years, tracking of use of certain intersections and pedestrians and bicycles and how they use them. And so it does help us to have some numbers, if this isn't super scientifically based, to show that we have people biking and walking in the city and we should pay attention to them. So again, that report will be included with the Bike Ped annual report that's submitted to Multimodal.
Thank you, Randy. Let's see, P&Z, Joe had to step away to go to his P&Z meeting, so he'll have an update on that meeting going on right now next month for us. I think Elizabeth had to step away, so that is everything on our reports. Please note the future agenda items. Just take a moment to say, Maggie, thank you so much for being a part of our group. We are sorry to see you go, but we're very excited to have yet another alumni out there in the bright lights taking good care of us and forwarding the positions of this group. So we wish you all the best, and we thank you for all your service.
So we need to have the next person up to run for city council now, because we've had Kim and now Maggie. Pretty soon we'll take over city council, and Multimodal will be just a given. So thank you, Maggie, for the
idea. And I'll keep coming. I just probably won't I won't vote anymore in future meetings. So
you are, of course, always welcome. So we thank you so much. Without other comments or questions, the meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Have a great, happy holiday season. Take care, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, everybody. Happy holidays.
I'm gonna get out of this.